Welcome to Live Breathe Film, episode 103. You're here with Corey, Doug, and Murph. Thank you for joining us. Today we'll be recapping the winter spring box office and crowning our winner for that season's box office pool. So we'll get right down to it. We're going to run through the actual top 25 of the this period, along with who drafted which of these films on them, how much money they've made, et cetera, et cetera. And then we will get to the winners at the end, or the final order, including the winner and who got the $50 AMC gift card. So we'll start with our films that we selected for the that we picked in the draft, but that didn't actually make the top 25. There were quite a few. So there were some other, as we'll get into the top 25, there were a bunch of movies that they weren't eligible. We didn't know they were coming out, or various reasons, which I'll get to. But then there's just some of them that, like, there could have been like 20 other movies in between, based on how low the box office were for some of these films. So we'll get into those now. These are the funny ones.
Yeah, we need like a title for these movies. It kind of
Yeah.
almost feels like a in memoriam or something. But
These are the what the fuck were we thinking picks. But all right, we'll start the lowest grossing. And I had to get very specific with the lowest grossing because I couldn't even round it up to $1 million. And that is Miller's Girl, with $321,000.
It's just
Go
wild.
go
Jenna
Doug.
Ortega is so hot right now. I guess except for she's not gonna draw a
Not,
box office.
not in this movie, at least. I mean, it was kind of like released in like not a lot of theaters. Like if it's in like AMC theaters, but like the C level theaters like nearby, and like a couple showings a day. So
Yeah,
it didn't get much of a push.
yeah. So
Um,
much for trying to ride that Jenna Ortega wave. that was
yeah,
a
Doesn't even
that
seem
was a
like they,
fail.
they tried though.
no, it
But
seemed like the top movie was too controversial. And shit like that. It's on Netflix now. I think it's probably like gonna do really well on there
yeah,
because movies that bomb in theaters end up becoming like these sensations on Netflix. But Doug picked it with his 18, um, with the 18th pick of the draft. So that's, I guess, your what, second to you had the number one pick in the draft. I had number two, and Corey had number three. So this would have been on your like last wraparound um, group of movies that you selected.
Yep.
So no real harm when you pick a movie this late and it does nothing. Um, there's been plenty of seasons where movies that we've drafted just haven't even come out, and just treat it
Yeah, I
like
mean it was
like
definitely
that, basically.
a gamble on Jenna Ortega that didn't pan out.
Yeah, exactly. The next three we've got all fall into the Pixar re-release
Re-release.
category. It's just a matter of how close below or above $1 million they made. So, and last we had Soul, which made a little bit under $1 million. Corey picked it at with his the number 9 pick in the draft. Then we had Luca, which made a bit over $1 million. Corey picked it with the number 21 pick in the draft, and then right above Luca, with a bit over $1 million, was Turning Red, which Corey picked with his number 10 pick in the draft. So yeah, I mean, it was a good thing you ended up getting Luca because it did top Soul. So getting that late in the game, it was a gamble going with all the Pixar releases, but You made $3 million out of them, so at
Yeah.
least it's better than Miller's Girl if you multiplied that one by 3.
Yeah, I mean, at
Which
the time,
wouldn't have even made $1 million.
it was slim pickings.
Corey, stop with the it was slim pickings. You picked Soul in and Turning Red with the 9th and 10th pick in the draft. It was not slim pickings at that point. But it's fine. You won twice last year, so it's fine. Everything's fine. Next up, we have Driveway Dolls. This was Doug's last pick in the draft. It was the last pick overall in the draft at number 24. I made $5 million.
Not horrible. I mean,
horrible.
I think I said when I picked this movie's probably not going to do anything, but I thought the trailer looked really cool.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it's a movie, which I think I said it's a movie I want to see, so that's why I drafted it, but I still haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, for sure. No, I found it funny. Corey didn't like it, but
Yeah, it didn't hit for me.
it ultimately $5 million. You can take it. And to complete your lesbian double feature, you had Love Lies Bleeding with $8 million. Awesome movie. Probably my second favorite of the season.
That's never mind. I got them mixed up.
Kristen Stewart.
Love's Live Bleeding is the one that I took because I just thought it looked cool.
Yes.
Driveway Dolls.
You taking that, and I thought
I don't
it was.
remember why I took Driveway
When you took
Dolls.
that, I thought it was going to be Civil War, and I was like, "Oh fuck me, no." But yeah, no, Love Lies Bleeding, really cool movie. Like I said, probably my second favorite of the season. $8 million. Doug picked it with the number 19 pick in the draft. So this was the one that you picked right after Miller's Girl, when you did that back to back in the snake draft. And then the final pick that was not in the top 25, was literally just missed it, was Lisa Frankenstein with $10 million. I think it was like right below $10 million. And I picked that with my last pick of the draft, the number 23 pick overall. Wasn't that great a movie. It was mildly funny. But yeah, of the classic Universal monsters, Corey had the much more successful pick, which we'll get to later, which at the time was an untitled Universal monster movie. But it eventually got a title and did come out on its release date. And it is in the top 25. But all right, we'll get to the top 25 now. So yeah, those were our, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movies that were selected but didn't ultimately make the top 25. Am I counting correctly? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. Okay, so 7 of our 24 picks didn't make it. Not very good. Now we get to the top 25. Again, we drafted 24 movies, but for the sake of a list, we'll do top 25. Number 25 was Late Night with the Devil, made $10 million. This one was one that was not eligible to pick. There was no release date set when we did the draft. I mean, this was a Shudder movie that IFC released, massively overperformed. It's like in their top 5 movie, IFC's top 5 movies ever, despite only making $10 million. But fun horror movie, original concept, despite being another possession, exorcism related type movie. Corey and I saw it. It was pretty cool, and happy to see it have success. Number 24, this was not picked. It was not on our list. Technically, it's a TV show. It's The Chosen, season 4, episodes 1 through 3. It was a Fathom event release. The rest of the season, also, some of them were above many of the movies that we picked. They just weren't in the top 25. But yeah, it wasn't on the list of movies to select from. Probably because it's not a movie. I don't think anyone was going to pick this anyway. But there's that. Number 23, we've got Sydney Sweeney's Immaculate. Made $16 million. This was not eligible. It had no release date or anything like that when we did this draft. For me, this one was annoying because of its house, relatable, or how much it kind of aligned with one of the movies that I did draft. They were very similar in concept, so we'll get to that and only a few more picks. But I think it definitely hurt one of my movies. Yeah, Immaculate, kind of a no fucks given, hard R-rated horror movie. And another hit for Sydney Sweeney in relation to budget and this being kind of like a neon indie horror movie. So well done there for her. Number 22, we have Unsung Hero. It's at 14 million and counting. So my projection is it will make more than Immaculate based on how much it made over the past 2 weeks. Nobody picked this one. It was eligible. This was the one about the Australian family who fucking sing songs. I think it's it was a Christian faith-based type movie. But did all right. Number 21. Good luck to me saying this one after the first 2 words. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba to the Hashira training.
Demon Slayer, the big one.
Yes.
Big anime.
Made $18 million. It was not eligible. There was no release date set for it. These Crunchyroll movies get their release dates seemingly right before these movies come out. Because it came out in I think February and we drafted in the beginning of March. But yeah, 18 million for that one. So yeah, these anime movies end up typically performing pretty well, but they kind of come out of nowhere. Now, for the most part, are movies we've drafted as we get into the top 20. So we've got 2-time draft pick, Ordinary Angels, drafted in the fall, undrafted in the winter, spring. Failed me both times, but did respectable.
I mean, it's pretty good, right?
Did respectable with $19 million.
Not 2 draft picks worth. The fact that it fucked you kind of diluted it a bit, but
yeah, there's other movies that I could have picked in this spot. I picked it with the 17th pick in the draft. It was the number 20 movie. There's a few above that didn't get picked or weren't eligible. So I mean, it did basically what it was supposed to based on where I drafted it, but I would have liked to see it have made more money. But it was when I saw, I would recommend it as a feel good type of movie. Just if you're in that type of mood to check it out. Hilary Swank gives a good lead performance. Alan Richmond, solid supporting performance, and he was also in our number 17 movie, which I'll get to shortly. And he was really strong in that one as well. But 19, it was Cabrini, made 19 million, so basically exactly what Ordinary Angels made as well. This was not picked. This was the one that was released by Angel Studios, who released Sound of Freedom. So it was one that I was kind of thinking about. I was like, do I draft this one based on Sound of Freedom? But it didn't have the whole catching pedophile angle to it. So didn't have the backing of QAnon or anything. And only did decent numbers, not insanely phenomenal numbers like Sound of Freedom did last summer. Number 18 is the movie that I was alluding to. That was kind of got undercut by Immaculate, and that's The First Omen. Made $20 million. I picked this really high. I picked this with my number 8 pick. It was the 8th pick overall. This was one that I've heard was actually like really good. Reviews are really strong. Word of mouth is really strong. But it opened like 2 weeks after Immaculate. Did not have any star power in it. It had the franchise name. The franchise doesn't, or brand name, IP name, but doesn't necessarily mean anything to audiences now. And Yeah, overestimated the appeal of another horror movie, and it didn't do that great. But I don't think any of us saw that, so we'll move on to number 17, which is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare from Guy Ritchie. It's at 19 million and counting, so currently it's below First Omen, but it should make another 5 million or so.
It's very surprising to me, that one.
Yeah, this one was a lot of fun. Henry Cavill, Alan, what is it? Richson, Rich, is it Rich, Alan Richson? I was like, that sounds too familiar. Sounds too similar to Alan Rickman. It's got to be son. Isaac Gonzalez, Carrie Always, Henry Golding, really good cast. Fun movie. It's kind of like Inglourious Bastards light, but like based on a true story. Yeah, no, I kind of thought I was going to make more money too. Corey, you drafted this with the number 15 pick in the draft. When you had drafted it, there hadn't been a trailer or anything like that. I think the movie had just gotten its release date. Yeah, after I saw the trailer, I'm like, damn, kind of wish I had drafted that movie. But it did kind of the numbers that a Guy Ritchie movie does outside of like established IP like Aladdin and Sherlock Holmes. Next up is at number 16 is Arthur the King. Made 25 million. I picked this with the number 20 pick in the draft. So overperformed for me based on where I picked it. So it's the Mark Wahlberg dog movie. I typically pick the movies with dogs, going back to Channing Tatum's Dog back in winter spring 2022. This was a fun movie. I saw this one. It's where they're on this crazy, Mark Wahlberg and his racing team are on this fucking intense, like it's like way beyond a triathlon type of thing, and they encounter a dog that kind of joins them on their journey, and it's based on true story. It's fun, funny, heartwarming, and overall worthy of where it ultimately ended up. Number 15, this one was annoying because it wasn't eligible because it was a streaming only release during the draft, but then Jordan Peele picked it up, and Universal Monkey Paw, they released it. It was Dev Patel's Monkey Man. It's at 25 million and counting. It's at the end of its end counting at this point. Badass, John Wick like type movie, but with more of a story behind it than just a straight up revenge movie. It's got a lot more like political, like the political system in India, dealing with that, and like sort of like the caste system over there and how people are treated, and so it's got a little bit more to say than the John Wick movies, but it's got some fucking awesome action scenes. So I'm excited to see what Dev Patel does next. But yeah, that's at number 15. Number 14, we've got the untitled Universal Monster movie that I referred to earlier, Abigail. It's at 24 million and counting. It's currently now on PVOD. I don't think it's going to make the other 4 million needed to top the next movie on the list. But Corey picked this with the 16th pick in the draft. So this was a gamble, and the fact that it didn't even have a title at the time. So you sort of went with the gamble style that Doug went with some of the movies in the fall draft, where it's like, okay, there's no trailer yet. This is really strange. Why does Aquaman not have a trailer 3 months before release date? But obviously it didn't make Aquaman numbers, but being the 14th highest grossing movie of the season, not bad, especially when you picked it with at number 16. And I thought it should have made more money.
I was
kind of
surprised.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I would have had it, but had like a name and a trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
When we went to draft it,
Without a doubt. I think we all
drafted it way higher.
Yeah, I think we all would have taken it in the top 10. Had those things.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Doug, as a Ready or Not Scream 5-6 fan, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts once you get to it. It's very much a radio silence movie. Now we've got number 13. This was a fucking steal for you, Doug. I thought this was a really solid pick. Imaginary. Didn't see this being a hit in any way, shape, or form. It seemed like a C-rate Blumhouse movie.
Looked horrible.
Yeah, it didn't look good. Fucking wasn't released by like a big, like it was like a Lionsgate Blumhouse movie, so I really wasn't expecting much from it. You picked it with the number 13 pick. It was number 13. It's at $28 million. So this was just a solid mid-round pick, where like you just hope to make a decent amount of money and just not like completely whiff it and make like under 10 million, or like no money at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I took it because looked so stupid that maybe people will go see it.
And you were correct. It was so stupid that people did go see it. Wasn't a well-reviewed movie or anything. It didn't have any stars, but Chauncey,
you're just going
Chauncey
to see
the bear
this testupid teddy bear terrorize his family.
But he worked out for you. Number 12, another Blumhouse movie. This one we missed because we drafted after it opened. We drafted, I don't know, I think this came out like January 5th, something like that. And we drafted maybe like the 8th. It was one that after opening weekend, I was like, wow, glad we didn't fucking draft that. I probably would have overpicked it because of how bad its opening weekend was. But because there was nothing really performed very well, it ended up being the 12th highest grossing movie of the season.
It's crazy.
And made $32 million. So ultimately that's a movie that I would have ended up being happy getting, based on what the competition did.
What's odd about that one is that one was on PVOD really fast too.
Yeah.
Like within a few weeks. And then people still saw it in theaters. Like, ugh.
Yeah. And this one, I mean, at least had some like faces in it. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's got Wyatt Russell. Like, it's got some people that like people are kind of familiar with. It's got that kickoff of January typical horror movie that always kind of makes some money. And yeah, it did what it was kind of supposed to do.
Remake, right?
I don't believe this was a remake.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was the partnership between Blumhouse and Atomic Monster. I think it was the first like of that new deal with James Wan and Jason Blum's partnership.
Okay.
With Universal. So none of us got it, but good job for Night Swim. Relative to expectations. Number 11 could possibly go higher. Not exactly sure based on how much it fell last weekend, if it can make another $11 million and make it into the top 10. It's Challengers, Zendaya, her tennis film. It's at $33 million and counting. It certainly is possible that it could beat our number 10 and 9 movies, but I'm just not quite sure yet. If it does, it will just squeak past the two of them. Corey, you picked this with the number 4 pick, so it was your wraparound pick since you were the 3rd pick in the draft. We'll get to the fact that you and I both took some leaps of faith with our first 2 picks of the draft, with one of our first 2 picks in the draft, and it's ultimately what kind of doomed our fate. But among other things, I guess you could say. But yeah.
Challengers.
Oh no, this is my second favorite movie of the season. Tops Love Lives Bleeding.
Yeah,
But
you were high on it.
my expectations were also higher for this one than Love Lives Bleeding. But yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, these sexual movies seem to, or that are kind of promoted based on the sex, seem to be limited in what they make. And Corey, you continue to draft them after Poor Things and Saltburn. But it does seem like they have a ceiling. Poor Things made similar amount of money to this ultimately.
This is on PVOD on Friday too, so
okay.
It might be, I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, it's a lot less sexual than the advertisements would have you believe.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Like, there's no actual sex in the movie. But yeah, it's kind of showing what Zendaya can do outside of established IP. This is her first ever leading role in a theatrical movie. And yeah, I mean, it was an R-rated movie, so probably kept a bunch of her fan base at bay. But it's a movie that should become a pretty big hit once it hits home video. Once it hits fucking streaming and rentals, PVOD, all that shit. Kind of like Saltburn. Now we hit our top 10. This was a really safe pick by Doug, but it's showing how superhero movies are continuing to kind of free fall if quality's not there. Yet it makes the top 10. Like, so they're reliable at making mediocre numbers. At the very least, it's Madam Web. Made $44 million. Another Sydney Sweeney flick. This one headlined by Dakota Johnson. Doug, you picked it at number 12. So very good pick with where you got it. I think we all had low expectations for what it was going to make. It was just, there was only so many like movies that had any sort of IP attached to it by the time you got to this, that we probably all would have liked to have it around here. Just, it got to you.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that there was some upside here. I mean, the movie, I think we had seen the trailers at this point and knew that it was probably going to be a steaming pile of dog shit.
It's a classic Stoney superhero film without the Kevin Feige or Lord or Miller.
So the only hope or what I was hoping here, I figured like the low end was probably around here, maybe a little lower, but it had like a lot of upside, I thought, because if it was halfway decent, which we probably knew wasn't the chance, or it was like so campy bad that people rushed out to see it, like a Morbius, like it had upside to it, but neither one of those really panned out. So then it kind of just performed where it should have, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like
I was kind of hoping for more, to be honest.
Superhero movies kind of do, like, their basement is around, or their floor is around this point. Like, I'm pulling back a couple recent stinkers, not even so recent, but of the end of the Fox era, like Fantastic Four in 2015, that made 56 million. Dark Phoenix. I'm not gonna look up New Mutants because that came out in the middle of 2020. Yeah, Dark Phoenix made 65 million. So like the ceiling for the floor for superhero movies is still like relatively decent.
Yeah.
If there's not a lot of competition, like to get it in the middle of a draft.
And
even
this might be
all the DC movies have, like, even I guess Shazam. What did that make? Around 50 something million, right? Shazam 2.
I thought it was in the 60s, maybe.
Shazam Fury of the Gods, 57 million, or round up 58 million. Um,
So it kind
so
of underperformed when it comes to shitty superhero movies.
yeah. So what does that mean for Craven the Hunter when we draft it this December? I don't know. Is Venom 3, is Venom just immune to this? And it's the anomaly of the Sony Spider-Man universe. I don't know. It's starting to look that way. I mean,
Yeah,
Morbius made double what this made. It made like 80 something million. But yeah, ultimately, not a bad pick at
yeah,
all. But speaking of bad picks, we have my pick, which was the number ninth film. It was Argyle. I reached way too high on this one. I picked it with the number 2 pick in the draft. It only made 45 million. I sealed my fate right here. Ultimately, I picked it because I thought Corey was going to pick it at 3 or 4. Didn't He said he was not anyway. So either way, if I took the one film and then took Argyle and the next one, I would have been with the 4. I would have been in the exact same situation
Yeah, once we started,
that I ended up in.
I
But
wasn't gonna pick it.
it ultimately didn't matter. Had I picked it at 2 or 4, I would have ended up being in the exact same situation I am now. But it is a key. We will get to a key reason of how it helped Doug as we continue to move along. But
yeah. And I was eyeing Argyle. I don't remember where I was eyeing it, but definitely on like the earlier part of the draft. To me, this was like $100 million movie.
yeah, I mean, it had so many fucking stars in it, like or
I
names.
definitely would have gotten this before Mean Girl.
So you probably would have picked it at 3. Your third pick
Probably,
in
yeah.
the draft, because you picked, or sorry, you probably. Well, yes, if I didn't pick it, you probably would have gotten it as your third pick, because you did get as your third pick would have been off the board, and Mean Girls was your 4th pick, so you probably would have went Argyle and Mean Girls at 3 and 4. Your 3 and 4 picks.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe even higher than that.
well, you couldn't go higher, or sorry, it would have been your second and third pick,
Could have been
because
my second pick, yeah.
because you go so much later. Mean
Yeah,
Girls,
so I didn't think
third
this was
pick.
like a I didn't think this was a bad pick by any stretch of the imagination. I think we probably I think we were thinking about it from like it's gonna be in the next Kingsman,
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the way I
and
was looking
that's
at it as a
obvious.
more accessible Kingsman, even like PG-13 rating.
Yeah.
Um, so many bases. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but apparently it fucking sucked.
I saw it. Yeah, it's not great.
So yeah,
It's
Matthew
and it's like
Matthew
every
Vaughn's
five
on a
minutes.
downhill slope between this and the Last Kingsman movie, the prequel one. Um,
Even the Golden Circle or
Gold,
whatever wasn't great. I
yeah,
thought
the
it was a little
second
too.
Kingsman.
It got a little too like goofy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's just better when the studio kind of like has him a little bit more on like a leash on
Mhm.
what he can do, and he can't just go like full full Vaughn or like I don't know what the issue is, but I'm starting to worry more about like if he does a third Kingsman or I'm just kind of worried about his movies and their accessibility overall. And he's got this some sort of arrangement with Apple, right?
I don't
Beyond
know if
Argyle.
it was beyond Argyle or not. I'm not sure.
Okay, so yeah, we'll see, but yeah, it's definitely. I thought this was a kind of like one of the bigger surprises of the draft. I didn't think it would perform this
Yeah.
bad.
And all three, it's interesting to note, you mentioned Apple. All 3 of the Apple movies have all made under 70 million bucks that have been released in theaters. Colors of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, and this. I don't know if like throwing the Apple logo up there makes people go, oh, I could just wait until it's on Apple TV Plus like fairly soon. Like it'll probably be on there quickly. Um, Granted,
Yeah,
Napoleon and
I mean it's
Killers
not that quick
are
though,
very different movies than Argyle, and yeah, it's not. It was 2 months
right?
on Apple TV Plus, so it's not like instantaneously or anything. Um, like they're getting wide releases and with a window, but like 45-day window, something like that. But I don't know. Well, it'll be something interesting to see as there are more Apple movies that come out over the span of 2024.
Yeah.
Argyle was surprising because it didn't. The trailers looked fun, but clearly the movie was a disaster. I haven't actually watched it yet, but I've heard nothing but terrible things.
Yeah, I mean, when I
Yeah,
saw
it's not good.
the reviews in the opening weekend, I'm like, God damn, I fucking whiffed this one again. Just like Indiana Jones. Been having bad luck with my first round picks over the past year. Migration worked out, but those two did not. Um, but I digress. Number 8, this was by far the best pick in the draft. Um, it was the Beekeeper. Corey's last pick. He picked it with number 22 overall, and it made 66 million. So a fucking steal. We talked in our last episode when we did our summer drafts about how late round picks typically don't matter. This is an example of a late round pick absolutely mattering. I mean, it didn't ultimately change the rankings, but if it was a closer one, it most certainly would have. Because I mean, the number 8 pick, but pick number 22. That's huge.
Yeah.
So Jason Statham really kind of outdid himself with this one in one of his solo action movies. Probably might be like his biggest solo action movie of all time, like bigger than all the Transporters, Cranks, and all these other ridiculous movies he's made. Just falling below his like ensemble films. Um, but man, it's one that in retrospect I was like, the trailer was so goofy and like funny, like I probably should have picked this one, um, but I didn't see it being this high. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. I don't know. To me, it felt like a straight to streaming type
yeah,
movie,
yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, it definitely had like a goofiness, I guess, that
I
got people
yeah,
to go out.
I think the goofy, playful tone of it just made it go beyond what like a Jason Statham, Liam Neeson type of action movie nowadays makes. Um,
Yeah, and it wasn't like a. The timing of when it came out was probably helped it too.
Yeah, it came out before. It came out in January before all the big movies of March. There wasn't really anything in February. So the timing, you're probably right about the timing playing having a major impact in its
Yeah,
ultimate
I think how they came
box office
out
total.
that time where everything was competing against each other, like Frozen Empire. I think it's called Frozen Empire. I
It
don't
is.
remember, but
Yeah.
okay. And like where we were just like, why are like what is the studios doing having all these movies come like back to back on each other? I think it would have gotten lost in the shuffle, but yeah, perfect timing as far as releasing it too and release strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So yeah, well done again, Corey. Next up, number 7. It's likely going to top the Beekeeper based on its most recent weekend. It's currently 3 million behind. It's Civil War. It's at 63 million and counting. I picked this with the 14th pick in the draft. So I'm ultimately very happy with how it turned out, both based on the quality of the film and where I drafted it. It seemed like, I mean, it was a bit of a risky pick, an A24 um, movie dealing with the Civil War in the U.S. And what that could potentially look like, even though they made it so it wouldn't like be completely look like present day by having certain factions of the country against each other. But yeah, this one struck a chord. Not as big as I would have hoped, but still, the fact that it like ended up being the 7th biggest movie of the season kind of made up a little bit of the stink of my Argyle pick. Showed that still got a little bit of a pulse on what people want to see, but happy with how it performed and everything like that. So yeah, still happy that you picked Love Lies Bleeding, Doug, and I was able to get. Um, so oh wait, no, You picked Love Lies Bleeding. Actually, I think you thought I was going to take Love Lies Bleeding here when I took Civil War. I think that's what it was. Um, or you had mentioned there was a cool looking movie, and like you're like, I think you're going to take the cool looking movie that I want to take, but I'm not sure how it's going to do with box office. And then I took Civil War. You're like, oh, never mind. Um, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of scared of this one for the reasons you mentioned, but it was a great pick, or turned out to be a great pick. So I was kind of a little worried when I saw how well it was performing that this was going to give you, you know, some newfound life.
yeah, exactly. All right, now we get into the top 6, which really is where Doug kind of won. We anytime someone has half of the top 6, they're in pretty good shape, I would say. But it shows what fuck happens when um, people drafting 2 or 3 take risks and draft movies like Argyle and Challengers before it gets back to the person who had the number 1 pick. And who's the number 1 pick was so obvious, where you end up getting 2 solid picks on your way back. Granted, there was no guarantee you were going to take one of these 2 of these films, one of which I'm going to talk about now, but it was pretty obvious one of them you were going to take. But the other one, which you did take at number 6, was Mean Girls, the musical version. Made 72 million. You picked it overall number 7, so it was your 3rd pick that you took overall. And did exactly what it was supposed to do. I mean, it was an IP-driven movie that made about $10 million less than the original version from 20 years ago. And another musical hit after Wonka. And you had Wonka last season. Wasn't there another musical last season that came out also?
Color Purple.
Oh, yeah, Color Purple. This is a bunch.
That was
much better than Color Purple.
That was not last draft, though, right? That was the draft.
It was the
fall
draft.
Oh, it was
the same as Wonka.
Fall winter. Yeah.
The musical revival is in full swing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the marketing trick for that is to just not let people know that they're going into a musical.
Exactly. they kind of did it with both Mean Girls and Wonka. They might have even done it with Color Purple to a degree as well.
Yeah, there's like no singing at all in the trailer.
Yeah. Kind of just made it look like a straightforward like Mean Girls remake. But yeah, it worked out very well for you. And yeah,
I'm pretty sure my wife went to go see it and was just like, had no idea that she was walking into a musical. I'm sure a lot of people had that same exact like. As soon as they started singing, they're probably like, "Wait, what?"
Other than them having like a musical note in like the title, like that was like it for knowing that it was a musical.
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean, it was an adaptation of the Broadway musical, which was an adaptation of the movie, which was an adaptation of a book. So it's gone the exact same route as Color Purple. Book to straight up forward movie to Broadway musical to musical movie adaptation of Broadway. But yeah, it did well. And when you got this, I was like, fuck. This fucking. I was hoping you weren't going to take it. There's a lot of times where you like are when you're drafting, Doug, where you're like stuck on one for way too long. And I'm like, why is he thinking? Why is he thinking? This is so obvious. Like, I'm the next pick. I fucking am taking this like with like no fucking thought whatsoever. And eventually you drag it out and say Mean Girl. And I'm like, God damn it. But
psychological warfare.
It did ultimately work. Did this work for me? No, it did not work for me. It didn't work for me at all. I drafted the first Omen next. But my next pick after that did work for me, which also includes music. The number 5 movie was Bob Marley, One Love. I picked it at number 11 in the draft, and it ended up being number 5. So this was a major steal. Made 97 million.
Yeah, that was what I wanted.
We were all kind of music biopic out based on movies that we've seen picked in the past that have not done well, whether it's Aretha Franklin, Respect, that JP drafted at one point. I Want to Dance with Somebody, the Whitney Houston one that Doug drafted.
I was so mad at the performance on that. 23.7 million. I was just like, I'm never again taking these movies.
Yeah. It's why none of us drafted Back to Black, the Amy Winehouse movie this summer. It's very specific in what artists can generate a box office, it seems like. But yeah, I was a little nervous about it, which was when it eventually stumbled to me at 11. I was like, all right, I got to take it. I was surprised when Corey didn't take it. Corey, this is an example of when you were talking about slim pickings. Why didn't you take Bob Marley instead of Turning Red at 10 or Soul at 9? Did you just overlook it at the time?
No. I wanted to take it. I wanted to take it a little higher or a little lower in the draft.
You were holding out.
I was trying to hold out, but it was definitely one that I thought was going to potentially break out. I just waited too long.
You did your Aquaman, except for you didn't do a hard. I'm not drafting this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had some strategery in mind.
I didn't think either of you were going to draft it either.
That's fair. I mean, you knew I had no intention of seeing the movie. I was always shitting on the trailer, and it wasn't a strategic move. I didn't see the movie. I didn't think it looked good.
I think I showed my hand too.
I heard enough people saying, "I think this movie looks good," where I was like, "Okay, I feel safe taking this like that as my fourth pick in the draft, I think it was." So yeah.
When you ultimately picked it, I was like, "Fuck, god damn it! I should have just picked it."
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, we've all done that before in plenty of drafts. All right, and then here's another example of Argyle and Challengers fucking both me and Corey. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, number 4. There's no reason we should have allowed Doug to get this with the number 6 pick in the draft as a major IP. Fuck, man, we fucked up here. It's just unacceptable. Obviously, we picked the other 2 IP that did better, both you and I, before this, but we both gambled on an original one as well, and it completely fucked us. That Doug was able to go with 3 IPs back to back.
I was really surprised that I was able to get my hands on Ghostbusters here, and I was really happy when I did, because I was like, I did not think Ghostbusters was going to fall all the way to me in those picks. So
understandable. You actually got 4 IPs back to back, because then you got Madam Web somehow.
And I got Madam. I remember being like, man, this thing's really things just fell to me.
Yeah, you were probably like, oh man, I won. By your 3rd pick.
I wasn't
what are
that confident.
What are these stooges thinking?
But I felt pretty good, definitely, about the way things fell on this one. I do not feel as good in our current draft, but
yeah. So this is our first one that went over 100 million because Bob Marley got stuck at 97, but it's at 110 million and counting. Doug picked it with the 6th pick. It ended up at number 4. This was one where it had legs. I mean, all these movies that came out on top of each other in the month of March all legged it out throughout all of April. There was a point where it didn't look like Ghostbusters was even going to make $100 million, and it's still making money now. So maybe we will get a 3rd one if they just lower the budget. Corey just watched it this past weekend. I saw it in theaters. Both of us thought it was better than Afterlife. Doug will be interested to see what you think about the film when you get to it, because you're the biggest, I'd say, biggest Ghostbusters fan among all of us.
It just hit PVOD, right?
Yeah, that's how I watched it.
So yeah, maybe I'll just rent it. Pay
they're
the
all
$20.
yeah, but there was a massive difference between number 4 and then number 3 and 2, which were the other two that we knew. We knew what number 1 was what was going to be picked number 1, and it was like, which one do you gamble on as the IP established IP? If you're only going to pick one, ultimately both me or Corey should have picked 2 of these 3 movies. But we were right in the ones that we did draft, because both number 3 and number 2 are currently tied with the exact amount of money at 189 million and are both still counting. The one I picked came out after and his trajectory is still going a bit higher. So at number 3 we have Kung Fu Panda 4 with 189 million and counting. Corey, you picked this with the third pick overall, so this was your first round pick. This was absolutely the pick to make with your first round pick, because it aligns 3 and 3. Well, unless you picked the movie I picked, but they basically made the exact same amount of money. But yeah, this had a nice rebound for the Kung Fu Panda series. They had each gone down from 1, 2 to 3, and then this one made more than Kung Fu Panda 3 and more than Kung Fu Panda 2. So it helped that it was the big PG rated movie of the season. Everything else was PG-13. Yeah, I mean, that's why Migration, which I drafted in the fall draft, was able to leg it out as long as it did, as the sole animated movie of like the end of December, January, and February. Then Kung Fu Panda came in strong in March. But yeah, it had a nice rebound. I didn't necessarily see this coming. I didn't know how this or Ghostbusters were going to do, or Godzilla, Kong, The New Empire, which wasn't our number 2 movie of the season. I was between all 3 of them. I wasn't sure what the fuck was going to end up being number 1 between the 3 of those movies. Ultimately, I got this one with the number 5 pick in the draft, so it was my second round pick. 189 million and counting. You fucked up in the fact that, well, I fucked up first in that I didn't pick it with the number 2 pick. And then, yes, you fucked up. If you took Kung Fu Panda 4 and Godzilla Kong, that would have been a monster, number 1 and 2. And then I would have had to pick Ghostbusters Frozen Empire in the second round.
I didn't think the movie was
gotten 2 massive movies with his first 2 picks. $200 million movies. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect from this one because Godzilla vs. Kong came out during the pandemic.
It was day and date, wasn't it?
It was day and date, similar to our number 1 movie. Also, it's kind of like, all right, you did the Godzilla and Kong gimmick now, so like, why do people want to go see this one? They had already shown that the Godzilla franchise was going downhill. From Godzilla to Godzilla King of the Monsters to Godzilla versus Kong. But I don't know. I was just, the fact that Godzilla versus Kong kind of rebounded the box office and kind of gave faith to studios to put things in theaters in the summer of 2021, and not continue to push things back. I was like, fuck it at this point. I'm taking this over Ghostbusters. And obviously it was the right call. But
yeah, definitely the right call.
But didn't ultimately matter, because Doug, I think with your number 1 pick, you would have had to fuck up real bad to not win. The whole bang. Um, it is Dune Part Two with 282 million and counting. You
Oh,
picked
it's still
this.
making money in theaters.
Yeah, it's still
Wow.
making a little bit of money in theaters. You picked it number one. It's the number one movie. You had the number one draft pick. Uh, was there in reflection any serious thought you actually had about not taking this number one? I mean, you gave us a bunch of bullshit like, well, the first one was day and day and it only made 100 something million, a little low 100 million. Like, did you really not think it was going to be a big breakout sequel?
I mean, I did think it was definitely going to perform better than the first one because the first one, had the timing of it coming out was working against it. What I didn't like about Dune, and I think what ultimately probably prevented it from going higher than it did, is like it's kind of a heady sci-fi movie that you had to see the first one, which is a 2+ hour commitment. Didn't seem like a lot of people at least saw it in theaters. Um, so I mean, definitely had stuff working against it, but yeah, there was a lot of hype to it as well, and so I mean, I did consider doing something else, but like yeah, at the end of the day, it seemed like kind of a no-brainer pick. So
Yeah, I
um,
mean, this would have been your Super Mario Brothers draft all over again if you passed on Doom Part Two.
yeah,
I
that was such a fuck up.
Man, I would have been the happiest guy in the world if you passed on it. Um,
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it gave me such a big lead over you guys that you guys had to draft more defensively to keep me to in order to be able to stop me
Which we
with a hundred
failed
million
at.
dollar lead, and even that probably would have had been a little bit difficult.
yeah, no, it would have been difficult even if we had like just played straight up defense and not attempted to like get a breakout hit. Um, and
Yeah, I
just
mean, if you
went
guys
and just
kept
started with all the established IP.
yeah, if you guys kept all the IP, so that when by the time it came back around to me, I was stuck with a movie that's under sub 100 million, maybe.
Yeah, like
But
it would have been close. It
Would have
would
been
have
like
been
Civil War, probably.
closer. Like ultimately, I think the only way somebody else wins this draft is if either core like if you take Dune, is if I don't draft Argyle and Corey goes with Godzilla um and Kung Fu Panda, or he doesn't draft um challengers and I go with Godzilla and I also don't draft Argyle and I go with Godzilla and Ghostbusters. Like I think there's a chance. Then there's a chance I win. That swing
yeah,
from Ghostbusters would make a huge difference. It's an extra 70 million for me, and that's 70 million, not 70 million taken down from you because you would have taken something else, but
It would have made a
maybe
it'd
court.
be a lot though.
maybe it's Argyle, and maybe that's 70 million.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I'd probably if you guys keep you guys kept Ghostbusters, Kung Fu Panda, and Godzilla Kong away from me. There's a good chance I go Argyle, and then I fuck myself because then
Yeah,
that's 45 million, and you guys are but yeah, I would have had to. It was you guys were kind of at a deficit from the start just because of how much more Dune made than anything else on the table.
yeah, because I mean, now if we look at our final standings, we do have Corey with 327 million and counting. My in third place, myself in second place with 466 million and counting, and Doug with 548 million and counting. At the moment, myself and Corey are counting much more than you're counting, Doug. So I mean, what is it? A difference of 100 or 90? No, yeah, 90 something million, right? Or 80
Yeah,
something
so
million between me and you.
yeah, so you guys, if you change the way that plays out, I mean, I could have been beaten. I
Yeah,
wasn't. I
you
didn't,
take
didn't
away
have such a.
you take away Ghostbusters. If we switch around Ghostbusters, we have a. And if I take Ghostbusters and you take Argyle, we have a very close draft. We have a very close 1-2.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
wasn't. It
probably
wasn't. It
yeah,
wasn't sealed for the first pick, but it was. I had a lot going in my favor after the
yeah,
first pick.
definitely. And I think we kind of learned from that. It was another way that we took this information from this pool and kind of used it into our summer draft, where it's like, all right, let's not do these crazy reaches in the first like 2 rounds. Um, let's not hope there. Let's not bank on a fucking Top Gun Maverick or an Oppenheimer or a Barbie or anything like that. Let's go with the safer picks, and if we lose, it's just because of a freak thing and not because of our own like errors. Um, unless you
Yeah,
really feel fucking strongly about something, in which case that's not necessarily an error. But yeah. So Doug, congratulations.
Congrats.
back to
Is
back.
you're a back-to-back champ. You're following up Corey's back-to-back champ period from the first 2/3 of 2023. So now you've closed out 2023 and kicked off 2024 the right way. We'll see how this summer goes because
Yeah, I'm gonna soak it in because
at the moment
the more
we're
I think about it, the shittier I feel about this summer draft.
all right. Well, you know what? Let's stop talking about the winter spring period and get into the summer just in a sec. Um, because that is all we have to say now regarding the winter spring box office and our main topic for today. So thank you again for listening. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Like and subscribe. Spotify, Podcasts, etc. And then, as we were alluding to, if you missed our box office draft in our last episode, or just want to stick around to hear how the first films of the summer box office season have been performing so far, just stick around right now, and we're just going to have some quick end credit chatter where we talk about that. So summer box office pool. It started. Doug, why don't you? I'll let you finish your thought before we talk about how the first weekend of the season has gone so far, which has really been a Corey dominated summer season thus far because last weekend only had movies that were released from it that he drafted. So you're not feeling good right now, Doug, about the summer?
No, and it's not even because anything that's actually taken place yet. Just the
Okay.
more I think about the Wolverine Deadpool being halved, the more stupid I feel for taking it because I'm like, that's a huge like shot to my foot, and I feel like Inside Out 2 is gonna just like perform probably just as well as Daredevil Wolverine, but not be halved, and I'm fucked.
If that's the case, yeah, you probably are fucked.
Yeah.
But I do not think Inside Out. You made me nervous about the whole Pixar at the box
Yeah,
office.
I
You know,
started though looking at like the trailer reviews and stuff, and like there seems to be a lot of interest for it. So I don't know, we'll see. But I'm starting to get nervous about Inside Out too.
well,
And
if it
even
makes you
the
feel
friggin'
better, I'm nervous about you.
with If.
More than anything. Not if. I don't like how you fucking snaked Horizon Chapter 2 from me.
That's gonna be like that's not gonna matter at all in this draft.
It's
Is
gonna
that
matter. It's
movie?
gonna be like $100 million movie. It's gonna make all the difference as a last pick versus me getting in the middle of the draft. I hate well, my last 3 picks of the draft. I fucking whiffed it so hard. Um, I'm so mad about how bad I did them. I went against my strategy, and I hate it. Um, but I mean, you're gonna have a
I don't
solid
know. You've got
opening weekend with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, based on its opening day. Um, if should do
what
solid.
the
Bad
the
Boy,
beginning.
Deadpool,
Yeah,
and Wolverine, while halved, kind of sucks.
the
It
beginning kind of sucks or it scares me because you have Inside Out 2, Twisters, and A Quiet Place Day One, which just seems like a very scary
I love those three
top.
picks. Yeah.
Yeah, those scare the shit out of me. Corey is no slouch either because he's got Despicable Me 4, Furiosa, and Alien Romulus, which is also kind of a scary four, especially those top two.
We're gonna have a good
Uh,
idea about Corey by the end of May.
yeah,
Because
if Furiosa
half his movies will have been out by then.
performs well, then Corey's gonna be. But yeah, and then I've got Deadpool Wolverine, but it's halved.
Yes.
I think
Bad
Borderlands
Boys and
make money.
Kingdom of the Planet. I don't know. The more I look at this, my draft was trash, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm starting to get nervous. I'm starting to like second guess everything. I'm kind of wondering if Despicable Me 4 would have been a better play than Deadpool Wolverine, to be honest. But anyway,
I also think that even though Fall Guy, kind of underperformed, I think that one's gonna leg out.
Yeah, so we'll talk about your movies. All
It
we've
has the
got to talk
opportunity.
about really so far is the first weekend of the summer. Corey, you had both the Fall Guy and the re-release, which was your what was it, your third
Last
pick
pick?
in the draft? The Fall Guy? Or fourth, or it was your fourth pick,
Fourth
right?
pick.
You took in your second wraparound,
Yeah.
but you took Alien Romulus before it.
Yep.
yeah,
And then you took Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace release with your last pick in the draft. So, because you drafted third. So it was on your last wraparound, and it was your last pick. But your re-release strategy was a success this time. I mean, it was your eighth pick, your eighth film in the draft. It had an $8 million opening. The Fall Guy is going to need to have some legs after a disappointing opening weekend of of 29 around 29 million. I was totally expecting it to do more.
same.
Barbie is kind of the anomaly in Ryan Gosling's box office career as far as opening weekends go. He's got movies that leg out, like La La Land, Crazy Stupid Love. Those are just two, for example. But he doesn't necessarily have any big opening weekend movies. Emily Blunt actually has a lot more bigger opening weekend movies than Ryan Gosling does. But yeah, we're gonna need to see how it does after its opening weekend to ultimately determine its success. But I was surprised with the summer kicking off with an under $30 million movie. I mean, that hasn't happened since the 90s. I want to say. I'm trying to think what came out in 2000, what kicked off the summer of 2001. Spider-Man was 2002.
X-Men.
Gladiator was July, or X-Men was July of 2000. I think Gladiator kicked off the summer of 2000. Kicked off the summer of 2001. Was pre-superheroes being every year. Let me take a peek at the good old box office mojo.
Yeah,
Well,
that
it's weird too.
It was just very strange.
Yeah, I mean the marketing of this movie seemed like it was phenomenal too, which is like you. I don't know. I definitely would have thought this movie would have performed just
Mummy
based on.
Returns. So yeah, this was the lowest opening weekend, lower than 30 million, then excluding the summer of 2000 and 2001, since the 90s. Like Van Helsing, Kingdom of Heaven, these other movies made over 30 million. Otherwise, always been superhero movies since 2002, when Spider-Man came out.
One thing that was a little concerning to me when I saw this, I mean, I did see it at 3:00 in the middle of the week, but the theater was basically empty. There was maybe 10 people in the theater, other than Kate and I.
Yeah. Well, weekday, and schools aren't out yet.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, even this past week, I guess colleges would just be ending.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I mean, we'll see. I mean, a lot of the movies coming out this month are male, like targeted action movies, like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Furiosa. Then you've got in the beginning of June, you've got Bad Boys. If is a straight up family movie. The Strangers is a horror movie. Like it's not a big budget type of movie. Garfield's for kids. Um, so it's the female movie that and Challengers, if it sticks around and makes some money, are really the only two like real date movies of this month. Um, so we'll see how it does. After I wouldn't say it's done yet. Bullet Train legged it out to 100 million, around 100 million bucks, and from the same director, and I think that was a somewhat similar opening. Made 103 million, and it opened and it opened at 30 million.
Mm.
Granted, it opened at the end of the summer. Nothing opened after it.
Right.
So it's a little different than Planet of the Apes and Furious and all these other movies nipping on its heels. But we'll see. And then Star Wars, likely a one weekend wonder, but you can't argue with at least fucking making a movie over 10 million bucks with your last pick in the draft.
Yeah.
So well done with that. Doug, it's looking like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is going to have a solid opening somewhere in the vicinity of both Rise of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes. So not to the degree of Dawn, which was like its peak of
Yeah.
of the reboot series, where it crossed 200 million total and had a 70 plus million opening weekend. But it looks like it could be a 150, 160, 170 million-dollar movie, which fuck yeah, that's a really solid performer for you to get with your what was it? It was your second round pick?
I had it up in a second. So I did Deadpool.
Or was Bad Boys
Bad
your
Boys.
second round pick?
Bad Boys was second. This was my third pick.
That's a really solid third pick. I mean, it can very well top A Quiet Place, Day One, or Twisters. For me,
Twisters is just. I kind of wished I had gotten my hands on Twisters. I was hoping to get it. I think where I got Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, just because it's got it's just got that unknown potential behind it. But
yeah,
and then
yeah. And it can very
Bad
much
Boys
top
just
Furiosa.
feels like a dumb pick to me, or like not a movie that I would expect to perform. But I think I was just looking at the numbers, and I got enticed by the fact that the Bad Boys last movie seemed to perform really well, and kind of hoping for the same thing. But
no, I mean, I was surprised where you drafted it, but I do think it's guaranteed to make like a good amount of money. I think it's probably going to make similar money to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So, like, I don't think ultimately where you drafted those two is going to make a difference. It would just be if you took a different movie over one of those or both of those.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. We'll see what Twisters
Planet of the
does.
Apes is a reliable franchise. I didn't necessarily know if it was going to rebound strong after the Caesar trilogy, and kind of looking like more of like the original films by taking place like 300 years down the road. But
the human aspect.
Yeah, exactly. The humans not being the dominant species anymore, but it's doing what a Planet of the Apes movie kind of does. It's been successful since the 60s. It's a reliable franchise.
I've heard good things about it. I've heard the movies.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting good reviews either, based on what I heard from test screenings. But it's got an 80-something on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got like basically the exact same reviews as The Fall Guy, which I wasn't expecting. So we'll see. When we do our next episode, we're gonna know a lot more because we're gonna have seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and If both of their opening weekends will have played out. Strangers Chapter 1, and Furiosa potentially will have come out as well. Garfield may have come out as well when we do our next episode. Yeah, we're really going to know a lot more about you, Doug, more than anyone, guaranteed, when we do our next episode, because you will have had 2 movies come out by then and have full opening weekends. And
Yeah, I need If to just really overperform. But we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think that's being shown to critics in advance, which isn't
Okay,
always the greatest
that's not a
sign.
great sign.
But it's not like movies haven't succeeded when they haven't been shown to critics in advance. So, yeah, we might not get an answer about how things are going until August, because like Corey said, he's got Borderlands in August. He thinks that's gonna be a hit. He's got Alien Romulus, and he's got Crow. Then Doug, you've got Horizon, then Trap. It Ends With Us. Harold and the Purple Crayon, I believe, is August as well.
I regret taking that movie. I
I
think it was
just-
just. I don't know. I think I watched the trailer and I was like, man, this looks horrible. And for some reason, I still went ahead and drafted it.
Man, this looks terrible. I'm drafting it.
But I mean, yeah. I don't know.
I haven't watched the trailer.
It's bad. And like Zachary Levi's doing like the I'm a kid
Oh, he's
Yeah.
doing
thing
that.
again.
Nice.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I hate when he does that shtick. So
And then, yeah, for me, I kind of have a steady onslaught of movies from the end of May to the middle of July, and then my run's kind of over. So we'll see how I do. But things really kick off for me in the middle of June when Inside Out 2 comes out. Because then, yeah, that's when he gets to my early round picks. Quiet Place is the end of June, and Twisters is the middle of July. So, yeah. It's going to be an exciting one. We'll see who ultimately made some fuck ups and who made some smart choices. But again, congrats, Doug, on the last one. And we will
A good win.
we'll talk more about the summer box office in our next episode. But as always, this has been Corey, Doug, and Murph at Live Breathe Film. See you again next time, film fans.
Bye.